trying to hurt an INFJ is often one of the most self-destructive choices anyone can make, because the very nature of who they are and how they operate ensures that attempts to harm them tend to recoil back on the offender in ways both subtle and profound. INFJs are guided by introverted intuition fused with deep empathy, and this unique combination creates an energy that is far more resilient than it may initially appear. At first glance, INFJs often give off a quiet, gentle, and sometimes even fragile presence. They are not loud or outwardly aggressive, and they rarely retaliate in ways people expect. Because of this, those who try to hurt them may think they are easy targets, soft, accommodating personalities who will take the blow without resistance. But the irony is that this softness is deceptive, for within them lies a steel-like inner strength, a person that cannot be easily broken, and a gift of foresight that allows them to perceive motives and patterns long before most people even realize it. When someone tries to hurt an INFJ, they often underestimate how deeply intuitive INFJs are. INFJs can read people almost effortlessly, sensing intentions and hidden emotions even before they are spoken aloud. This means that attempts to deceive, manipulate, or undermine them rarely work for long, because the INFJ has already felt the shift in energy and seen through the mask. What the aggressor does not realize is that the INFJ has likely already mapped out the possible outcomes in their mind, and in most cases, they quietly prepare themselves for the storm before it even arrives. Their silence, in this sense, is not weakness, it is wisdom. And when someone believes they have the upper hand, the INFJ's unspoken awareness often ensures that the aggressor ends up exposing themselves instead, collapsing under the weight of their own intentions. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Playbook today. The link is in the description of this video. Another reason trying to hurt an INFJ backfires is because of their natural resilience. INFJs often spend much of their lives feeling misunderstood, criticized, or judged for being different. This lifelong experience, while painful, forges an inner armor that is invisible but incredibly strong. Every rejection, every wound, and every betrayal they endure is quietly absorbed into their depth, processed, and transformed into wisdom. So, when someone tries to cause harm, what actually happens is that the INFJ may hurt for a while, but eventually they transmute that pain into growth, clarity, and strength. The aggressor's efforts then serve as fuel for the INFJ's transformation, making them even stronger and more self-aware than before. In essence, trying to harm an INFJ does not weaken them. It sharpens them. There's also a karmic element to consider. INFJs often live in alignment with their values, treating people with compassion, kindness, and sincerity. They rarely seek to harm others, and even when wronged, they prefer to walk away quietly rather than retaliate in destructive ways. Because of this, their lives tend to carry a natural protection, as though the universe itself safeguards their path. Those who deliberately inflict harm upon them often find that misfortune circles back sooner or later. Not because the INFJ orchestrates revenge, but because the energy of cruelty tends to return to its source. The INFJ does not have to fight dirty or seek vengeance. The backfiring happens on its own, leaving the aggressor to face the consequences of their own actions. INFJs also have a capacity for distance and detachment when boundaries are crossed. People often assume that because INFJs are deeply empathetic, they will endlessly forgive and tolerate mistreatment. This is not the case. Once an INFJ reaches their breaking point, they can cut someone off with a level of finality that is shocking. When they withdraw, they do so completely, mind, body, and soul. No amount of pleading, apologizing, or manipulation usually restores the connection, because the INFJ's trust, once shattered, is nearly impossible to rebuild. This sudden and permanent absence often hurts the offender far more than anything the INFJ could have said or done, because it removes the very warmth, understanding, and love that once enriched their life. Losing an INFJ is losing a rare kind of connection, and the realization of what has been lost often dawns too late. Also, INFJs are not ordinary people in the way they process and articulate experiences. They are storytellers, writers, counselors, and visionaries. When they are hurt, they often channel their pain into art, words, or projects that not only heal themselves but also inspire and awaken countless others. In doing so, the harm that was meant to diminish them ends up amplifying their voice and influence. The aggressor, meanwhile, becomes a nameless character in the INFJ's story of triumph. What was meant as an act of destruction becomes, paradoxically, the spark of creativity. The irony in all of this is that INFJs rarely seek revenge. They do not need to. Their strength lies not in striking back, but in allowing the natural order of things to unfold. Life has a way of balancing itself, and the INFJ, attuned to that balance, knows that all they must do is continue walking in integrity. The harm meant for them inevitably circles back to its source, often magnified. Trying to hurt an INFJ, then, is not only futile but self-sabotaging, because in the attempt to break them, the aggressor ends up breaking themselves. Unlike personalities who lash out immediately, the INFJ pauses, observes, and absorbs the experience before making any moves. That stillness is where their greatest strength lies. Because they are deeply reflective, they do not act out of impulse or blind rage, which means their responses, when they choose to give any, carry an extraordinary weight. An aggressor may expect anger or dramatic retaliation, but instead they encounter silence, detachment, or an almost surgical level of emotional withdrawal. That kind of response is far more devastating than open conflict, because it denies the aggressor the satisfaction of control and forces them to face the emptiness of their own behavior. INFJs have the uncanny ability to mirror reality back to people. They hold up an invisible mirror that forces others to confront themselves. When someone tries to wound them, the INFJ's calm endurance, quiet strength, and unshakable integrity reflect back the smallness, cruelty, or insecurity of the aggressor. Few things sting more deeply than seeing your worst qualities revealed in the presence of someone who remains unbroken. The aggressor, instead of enjoying victory, often leaves with shame or guilt they cannot shake, because the INFJ did not descend to their level, but instead showed them, without words, how petty and destructive their behavior really was. Many people who set out to hurt INFJs expect them to crumble emotionally, but what they underestimate is the INFJ's relationship with solitude and introspection. INFJs often turn inward when wounded, and in doing so, they process, heal, and rebuild with astonishing clarity. What the aggressor wanted to see as weakness transforms into profound personal growth. The INFJ emerges from the experience wiser, stronger, and even more certain of who they are, while the aggressor remains trapped in their own cycle of bitterness and destructiveness. In effect, the INFJ evolves while the aggressor stagnates, and the gap between them only widens. Another reason hurting an INFJ always backfires is the rare depth of connection they bring to relationships. When an INFJ cares, they do so with complete sincerity, offering understanding, loyalty, and emotional depth that few people experience elsewhere. This makes their presence incredibly valuable. When someone decides to betray or harm them, they're not just causing pain in the moment. They are severing access to a once-in-a-lifetime kind of bond. And that loss does not become apparent immediately. It dawns slowly, like a haunting realization, when the aggressor discovers that no one else provides that level of connection, that level of soul-deep presence. By then, the INFJ has already moved on, leaving behind a silence that cannot be filled. The void itself becomes the backfire, a constant reminder of what was lost. INFJs tend to channel hardship in a long-term vision. Because they live so much of their lives guided by foresight and future orientation, attempts to derail them rarely succeed for long. They take setbacks and pain as lessons, integrating them into their intuitive maps of the future. This means that while someone may feel victorious in the moment of causing harm, the INFJ is already recalibrating, already aligning themselves with a bigger purpose that the aggressor cannot touch. Over time, this transforms the initial wound into a stepping stone, and the aggressor realizes that instead of destroying the INFJ, they inadvertently helped push them closer to their destiny. What also makes attempts to hurt an INFJ futile is the way they wield memory and pattern recognition. INFJs do not easily forget the lessons embedded in painful experiences. They may forgive, but their mind stores everything in a web of patterns, meanings, and symbolic connections. When someone wrongs them, the act does not vanish into oblivion. It becomes part of a larger tapestry of human behavior they are constantly studying. Over time, this gives them an almost prophetic ability to anticipate future betrayals, manipulations, or conflicts. The aggressor may feel they have won in the moment, but the INFJ emerges with heightened discernment, sharper intuition, and a deeper ability to protect themselves in the future. What was meant to weaken them becomes a form of training, equipping them with psychological tools that ensure they cannot be caught off guard so easily again. INFJs carry within them a rare moral consistency that naturally exposes the dishonesty of others. When someone attempts to sabotage or discredit them, the INFJ's actions and character over time act as undeniable proof of their integrity. People who know them recognize the difference between the truth and the lie. The aggressor often finds themselves losing credibility because their behavior does not align with the authenticity that radiates from the INFJ. Over time, this creates a stark contrast. The INFJ shines brighter, not because they seek the spotlight, but because their quiet consistency cannot be hidden, while the aggressor becomes increasingly isolated by their own negativity. The most painful backfire for anyone who tries to hurt an INFJ, however, is the loss of access to their heart. INFJs love differently. They invest wholly, they believe in the good in people, and they nurture with a depth that few ever experience. To betray that, to wound that, is to throw away a treasure most people will never find again. Once an INFJ withdraws their love, it does not return. No amount of apologies or empty gestures can reopen that door, because for them, trust is sacred. The aggressor is left to grapple with the realization that they have destroyed something irreplaceable. That absence becomes its own punishment, one that lingers long after the initial harm. On a spiritual level, INFJs often live in alignment with something greater than themselves, whether they call it intuition, purpose, or destiny. This alignment acts almost like a shield, ensuring that harm meant for them rarely achieves its full impact. The energy rebounds, reshaping itself into lessons, wisdom, and unexpected opportunities. Time and again, INFJs rise stronger from the ashes of their pain, while those who try to burn them remain trapped in the flames of their own choices. To hurt an INFJ, then, is not only an act of cruelty, it is an act of self-destruction, for the one who delivers the blow will always be marked more deeply than the one who receives it. INFJs have the capacity to forgive without forgetting. When they choose forgiveness, it is never weakness, it is liberation. They release the grip of resentment, not to absolve the offender, but to free themselves from emotional chains. The aggressor, however, is often left bound to their own actions. While the INFJ walks away lighter, having transformed pain into clarity, the person who inflicted harm remains haunted by the unresolved weight of what they did. This imbalance grows sharper with time. The INFJ moves forward in peace, while the aggressor lingers in guilt, bitterness, or denial. It is also important to understand that INFJs are not strangers to suffering. Many have endured a lifetime of feeling misunderstood, judged, or excluded. This means they have already developed an inner resilience most people cannot comprehend. To add to that, suffering only pushes them deeper into the well of strength they have always carried. They know how to sit with pain, how to dissect it, how to rise from it with even greater determination. The aggressor, on the other hand, often expects collapse, not transformation. When collapse never comes, when the INFJ stands taller after the storm, the one who sought to harm them realizes that they only sharpened what they wished to dull. Trying to hurt an INFJ always ends up revealing more about the aggressor than about the INFJ. Attempts to manipulate, control, or betray them act like a spotlight, exposing the darkest corners of the offender's character. The INFJ's quiet endurance leaves no distraction, no noise to cover up the truth. Others begin to see the aggressor's cruelty for what it is, and respect shifts naturally toward the INFJ. In the end, The person who tried to diminish them is the one who is diminished, while the INFJ emerges with their dignity intact and their spirit unbroken. INFJs are visionaries by nature. They're always looking beyond the present moment, seeing not only what is, but what could be. This forward-thinking orientation means that they do not stay stuck in the wound, nor do they allow bitterness to harden their spirit. Instead, they transform every attempt to hurt them into momentum toward their future. The aggressor may think they succeeded in leaving a mark, but years later, the INFJ's life has blossomed into something richer, more meaningful, and more expansive than before. And when the aggressor looks back, they see that their efforts not only failed but became irrelevant against the sweep of the INFJ's destiny. Also, unlike many people who fear being left alone after betrayal, INFJs retreat into solitude as a sanctuary, a place of deep renewal. This means that when someone tries to isolate or alienate them, the plan collapses. Solitude does not destroy them. It restores them. In that quiet space, they reflect, they write, they dream, they heal. What was intended as abandonment becomes fuel for reinvention. And when they step back into the world, they often do so with a sharper sense of self and a clearer vision, leaving the aggressor bewildered at how their plan unraveled. Also, because INFJs give so much of themselves in sincerity and depth, they form bonds that are strong, lasting, and deeply rooted. When someone tries to discredit or hurt them, the community of people who know and value the INFJ often rises in silent defense. Without the INFJ ever having orchestrated, others notice the injustice and lose respect for the aggressor. Over time, reputations shift. The INFJ's integrity shines more brightly, while the one who attempted harm becomes known for their cruelty. Thus, even socially, trying to wound an INFJ plants seeds of one's own downfall. People who try to hurt an INFJ often discover that they hurt themselves in the process. Because the INFJ offered them trust, empathy, and love before the betrayal, the loss of those gifts leaves a wound in the aggressor far deeper than they anticipated. They may not recognize it immediately, but eventually they come to understand that by harming someone so rare, they rob themselves of something irreplaceable. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Playbook today. The link is in the description of this video.